we have to appreciate that when we hear from somebody like Mr. Michael Fryzel, who happens to have a Bachelor's of Science from the Business Administration, in Business Administration from Valparaiso University, is distinguished to have an MBA from University of Chicago and a JD from Loyola University School of Law. He's got a wealth of experience with financial institutions because I mentioned he was in the Illinois Department of Financial Institutions from 82 to 89. After that, he was a member of the Governor's Board of Credit Union Advisors, has a lot of experience with financial institutions, and as an attorney knows the environment. But again, he came into UNCUA at a most difficult and trying time from an economic standpoint. And it's difficult now to create an environment so that, again, credit unions can continue to prosper, can continue to provide services, as well as stabilizing the share insurance fund and maintaining the integrity and viability of the credit union movement. Mr. Fryzel.
Well, thank you, Dr. Way and Bodan, for your remarks. I think regardless of whatever I have to say, it's got to sound better than what we've just heard. Thank you, Bodan. It's an honor and pleasure to address the members of the Ukrainian National Credit Union Association. The size and scope of this assembly of the 16 Ukrainian-focused credit unions from across this U.S. and Canada is impressive for several reasons. First and foremost, the credit unions that you lead are among the healthiest and most successful in the industry. Your commitment to member service, the progressive and forward-looking approach that you take to the operation of your institutions, and your financial performance is exemplary. More important is the way in which you make the word community mean so much more than just a word on a charter. Ukrainian credit unions are a very visible manifestation of how Ukrainian Americans have retained their identity. You honor your heritage while embracing our nation. You celebrate your Ukrainian traditions while enhancing your members' pursuit of the American dream. And you do this all under the framework of cooperative financial services. I know that many on Capitol Hill have noted with admiration how successful Ukrainian American credit unions are, and have wondered why other ethnic groups are not able to replicate your success. As a Polish American, I know my community does well in this area too, but there are other new arrivals to our melting pot who could and should pursue credit unions as an avenue for financial security for their people. Credit unions, along with the entire financial service industry, continue to struggle through these very difficult economic times. We have seen the closing of countless car dealerships, restaurants, and all kinds of small businesses. Numerous financial institutions have failed, and others will see record losses. A good friend of mine, Ed Callahan, had a sign on his desk when he was director of financial institutions for the state of Illinois. That sign read, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." Director Callahan carried that sign to Washington when he became chairman of NCUA. It is good advice and worked well for him in his two high-level government positions. But times have changed, and some things are broke and need to be fixed. Unemployment is in double digits, and states across the country are experiencing billion-dollar deficit. Yet, during these difficult times, credit unions are there, more than ever, for their members. They continue to make available the loans other financial institutions refuse to offer, and they continue to track the savings of individuals who need a safe haven they can trust for their funds. And they continue to receive the praise of individuals who know the financial sector and who repeatedly advise everyone that credit unions are the best deal in town. As we continue to move forward and work cooperatively through these difficult times, there remains much work to be done. A number of issues are in the forefront for credit unions. These are the important subjects you need to be aware of and talk about, for they involve and impact the tools you need to continue to serve your members, make your job easier, and provide for the continued growth and success of the credit union industry. Here are the issues I believe require the most attention. Member business loans. Credit unions continue to make funds available for small businesses, but are limited by statute on how much of their assets they can use for such loans. Recently, the administration joined numerous members of Congress who have said they support raising the cap on member business loans. In fact, the federal regulator and insurer has said the cap should be totally eliminated, and NCUA given the authority to set the rules that will govern how much individual credit unions can lend. These rules will be based on a credit union's safety and soundness, capital structure, and ability to be involved in that product. 12-month examination. We all know that the earlier you find a problem, the sooner you can put a solution in place. NCUA is building the examination and support staff that will head off adverse situations and work with struggling credit unions to implement a plan that will allow them to continue to operate in a safe and sound manner. For a number of years, the NCUA budget was consistently reduced, and key staff and examination personnel were not kept at sound levels. Having the resources in place to correct the path of a credit union heading towards failure will result in saving millions of dollars for the Share Insurance Fund. For the last 2 years, we have progressed in putting on staff the needed people to ensure necessary and sound regulation. Alternative capital. This is a tool many credit unions feel will help them build capital and remain competitive. It is certainly not for all credit unions, and especially not for those struggling to remain viable. Congressional action is required, and NCUA has communicated to Congress that they may wish to explore giving this authority to credit unions, and that if they do, we stand ready to implement the guidelines to make acquiring alternative capital a safe and sound practice. Corporate credit unions. This is perhaps the most difficult challenge facing credit unions in NCUA. Our proposed rule has elicited over 800 comment letters. Dialogues at town hall meetings have expressed concern, as well as a commitment to get the process done right. Corporate losses continue to grow, and we continue our efforts to both find a way to get rid of the bad investments and provide a good model that will allow credit unions, if they choose, to recapitalize or present an alternative. The proposed rule involves changes in 4 very important areas. Capital standards will be strengthened. In order to reduce risk, corporates would be subject to a leverage capital requirement aligned with Basel I standards and be subject to prompt corrective action. Asset liability management requirements will be put in place to prevent excessive risk and prohibit accepting funds from a single source that exceeds 10% of the corporate's assets. Risk concentration will be limited by not allowing corporates to excessively concentrate in a single type asset. And governance standards will raise eligibility for corporate board members to achieve greater levels of expertise, experience, and motivation. Legacy assets. This has been an enormous undertaking, which has been ongoing for months. There is no easy way to unbundle more than $50 billion worth of assets, repackage them into marketable bonds, and move them from corporate balance sheets without realizing losses. The effort is so huge and so important that we have dedicated 30 of our top staff to work on it. In recent months, our team has been brainstorming every idea for safety, involving the corporate credit crisis, and solving the problem at the lowest possible cost to credit unions. With nearly every possible solution, more questions and more legal and accounting issues are raised. Today, we feel we are on the verge of a breakthrough, and we are close to a plan that would remove the riskiest legacy assets from ongoing corporates, while carrying forward the most valuable pieces of the corporate system. The plan would empower natural person credit unions to choose which corporates they will support, and it would ensure that those corporates begin with clean balance sheets.